I had a comment that was recently made on one of my videos, on one of my short videos, that was basically talking about the problems with whole life insurance. And so in this video, I want to go through and talk about why this guy was wrong about his 4 problems with whole life insurance and why he believes buy term and invest the difference is actually a superior model. So in this video, I'm going to touch on exactly that, what my problems are with the buy term and invest the difference philosophy, and that's where I'm going to start, because once you understand my challenges with that, now you can start to back your way into understanding why in fact I do love whole life insurance so much. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, that way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Let's roll. Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and in this video we're talking about buy term and invest the difference, the philosophy of that buy term and invest the difference, which a lot of people really have bought into. You know, the Primerica people of the world really follow that philosophy. It started off with Art Williams in the early 80s. Then it's expanded, and people like Dave Ramsey and Suze Orman really kind of back this mindset up and the philosophy up of buying term and investing the difference. The idea of buying term and invest the difference and their philosophy behind it is saying, hey, you have a very short-term window that you need to actually have insurance. And the only reason you need life insurance is for your family. Is to make sure your kids are taken care of, make sure that while you have debt and obligations, that those debt and obligations are covered. There's a lot more to it than that. And that is one of my challenges with the overall philosophy, but that is how it's being sold. And so what I want to do is just talk about this for a second, go to my board. So the idea here would be saying, all right, buy term and invest the difference is, let's just say you have somebody that needs $1 million of life insurance, right? Let's say that that's what they want, and that's what they need to cover their wants in life, to make sure their family, make sure their spouse is taken care of, make sure any of their debts and obligations are taken care of. And so the idea here is saying that if $1 million and by the way, these numbers are not going to be right on the money. We're just going to talk in principle, okay? That's ultimately what we're going to do here, is talk about a principle. So the idea here is saying, all right, if $1 million of life insurance is what you need and what you want, now let's talk about whole life would equal, let's just say hypothetically, it's $10,000 a year in premium, and that a term life would be, let's call it $800 a year. So what we're doing here is we're saying, all right, there's obviously a gap here of $9,200, right? So the idea is like, why would you spend this extra $9,200 on whole life when you can get term for a fraction of the price? Well, there's a couple things that come into mind. So this term price at this point, let's just say it gets you a 15-year term. You'd have $1 million of coverage for 15 years. And the idea is at the end of the 15 years, that term insurance is going to go away. You're no longer going to be insured. Financial pundits like Dave Ramsey, Suze Orman would tell you, well, 15 years from now, you could be able to self-insure at that point in time. The problem with this is that they're not taking into consideration all the other elements that come along with this $10,000 premium. And when we really break it down, if we really want to take a look at this and break it down and compare apples to apples, the whole buy term and invest the difference, my biggest challenge with it is that they're acting like it's a conversation about the fact that you're only investing your money and you're only getting term insurance, or you're only needing to fill this need for the $1 million. But when in fact there's 3 components to this. You have the fact that yes, you need insurance. So they're saying that you have just your insurance need, your investment need for your future. This is what they're saying. These are your number 1 and number 2 need, and that this buy term and invest the difference mentality and philosophy leaves out this concept, which is hilarious to me in an ironic sense, that Dave Ramsey, who preaches savings and the importance of liquidity and savings and emergency funds and all this stuff, just negates this and doesn't talk about the fact that savings is part of the equation, because we can't just look at this apples to apples and say, well, from a buy term and invest the difference perspective, it's only looking at investments. It's not taking into the account of savings. And this is why I spend so much time talking about the importance of financial structure. I'm a big believer we need to save before we invest. We need to get those needs taken care of, and we have to have our emergency fund. We have to build an opportunity fund. We have to have our rainy day fund kind of put in place. I know there's a lot of different people with different opinions on how much that fund needs to be. A lot of people like Dave will tell you need 6 months of living expenses or income put into an account. I would tell you you need to have at least a year. And I would also say the higher the income you are, the more money you need. The US Department of Labor has a statistic in a study that says for every $10,000 of income you make, it's going to take about a month to find the next job. So if you make 100 grand a year, that means it's going to take you 10 months to find a job. So what's the point of having 6 months of an emergency fund, right? And furthermore, when times get tough, when we go into recession like we're about to go into, like I think we're already kind of teetering on the edge of, those are the times where those statistics get worse. And we talk about an average of 1 month for every $10,000 of income for a $100,000 income earner. That's an average number. So do you want to be prepared for average, or do you want to be prepared for worst case scenario? Furthermore, in times of recession is when there's more opportunity. That's why I say you should have 2 years of income in a fund prepared for both emergency and opportunity. That way, when times are tough, when the most opportunities present themselves to the world, you're not forced to come from a place of scarcity and survival. You're able to know that all your needs are met on a short-term basis. You'll be able to weather that storm, and you still have a pile of cash that you can seek opportunity with. And to me, that's a huge opportunity that the buy term and invest the difference philosophy doesn't keep up with. Now, I'm gonna go back to the board here, and I wanna talk about this for a second, because at the end of the day, the first things first, before you even go and invest, you need to start thinking about your insurance needs and your savings needs. Those are the things that we want to do. So if we compare apples to apples here and we say, all right, what are we going to do? What are our options? I can go and I could put my $10,000 in a savings account, right? So let's just say my insurance cost me $800, hypothetically, for a term insurance. So I could say I'm going to put my $9,200 into savings first, and I could go put my $800 into insurance. Well, I've got something I want to pull up here. So here's what I want to really compare is the fact that we have this $800 here, right, which was important for the premium, and then we have $9,200 going into savings. Now, we can never compare whole life insurance to an investment because it doesn't have the same risk profile as an investment. So when we look at the buy term and invest the difference compared to putting money in a whole life policy, no, we have to think about what is our savings account and emergency fund needs and our forced savings plan, the amount we want to commit to saving liquid, guaranteed, accessible capital. And we have to compare the term insurance to that. And then we have to compare the long-term value and growth of a savings account and all the benefits that go with a savings account and all of our long-term needs. We can't be thinking about investments compared to whole life. Now, I understand why Dave Ramsey and Suze Orman and all these people hate whole life insurance sales people, because whole life sales people a lot of times get it wrong and they try to sell whole life insurance as an investment. And in fact, a lot of index universal life agents are doing this improper, and they're selling life insurance as an investment, which it never should be. That's my big problem. If you look at my content, one of the big reasons I cannot stand index universal life. But what I want to do is I want to compare not buy term and invest the difference, but the comparison of buying term and invest the difference, or buying term and saving the difference, and buying whole life insurance compared to buying term and saving the difference, because your first need is to save money. And so I have this illustration here. This is a whole life policy that I want to kind of show an example of, as a comparison with whole life insurance. So what we look at here is, you can see first and foremost, the death benefit is a little low, right? Like it's a lot low. We're talking, what I've done here is I've designed a policy, you can see with a $10,137 premium. I've designed as low of a cash value as possible, but the principle here is I just had this on my board. I wanted to show you how liquid whole life insurance could actually be from a long-term perspective. And what you can see here is by year 8, I've got more money when we look at our total premium of cumulative premium of 70,000. Actually, it's by year 6. I put in 60,000 and I have 62,000 available, right? And so when we're looking at saving an emergency fund, not just investing as a difference, but our first need is the savings account alternative, well, then this is going to take care of that. This is going to be a better place to save money from a long-term perspective, and that is what it is. And when we look at the death benefit, this death benefit is going to continually grow. Now, I don't disagree that there's going to be a short-term need, maybe 15 years for a family that has life insurance. And for this, whatever is above and beyond this that we need, if we need $1 million of life insurance and we only have $250,000, that means we have a need of $750K more of life insurance, and we would supplement that and find a blend of a term insurance mixed with whole life insurance as a savings account. But the great part about with this is when it all gets done and the term insurance, which is a separate policy, expires, you have all this insurance that continues on. Now, Dave Ramsey would tell you, you don't need all this insurance, you're self-insured, but what you may not need it because of the life insurance, because if you follow Dave's plan, you do all this stuff, I would argue you probably still gonna come up short because most of his people do. But at the same time, let's say you follow his plan flawlessly and you execute and you have all your house paid off and you have no other debt and you have all these things going on, you've got your cars paid for, you have no debt, nothing bad, and you're in control of your finances from that perspective. There are things that are gonna happen. You're gonna have money saved for retirement. It's great that you have this cash value right here in these policies that by the time you hit 65, you got over $250,000 right here saved for retirement. Now, the beautiful part about this is that you also have this permanent insurance of $387,000. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but the biggest cause of bankruptcy in retirement and the biggest reason people's financial plans fall apart is because of medical risk and the collections that are caused by medical expenses. Furthermore, I'm a big believer in controlling my medical directive. I've shared the story, my father-in-law getting pancreatic cancer, and the importance of being able to choose your own medical treatments, and the fact that those alternative medical treatments sometimes cost a lot of money. He was out of pocket for $200K, right? So the fact that we could accelerate this death benefit while we're alive to the tune of $200K if we need to pay for alternative medical treatments and be able to not have to just do what the insurance company tells us to do. To me, there's a ton of value behind that. Plus, if you have other investments and other assets, this $263,000 can be utilized in retirement as what we call a volatility buffer. And when we look at that as a volatility buffer, it's going to enhance the performance of all your other assets because, listen, when you're in retirement, 25% of the time, the market's going to be down from a year-to-year basis, right? You're going to have 20% of the years, the market's going to be negative. And so when we look at negative years, the worst thing you can do is liquidate and take income from negatively performing assets. So I always suggest you have 2 to 4 years of income, 3 to 4 years of income, in whatever your cash value is in your whole life policy to use as a volatility. I have other videos on this too, volatility buffer. And that will just make it so it allows all your other assets to recover. And so there's nothing else that will beat this from that perspective. It's extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. And so I want to take a look at my comments here. And first and foremost, this comment says, most whole life policies have these 4 things in common. 1, there's no savings in the first 3 years. I showed you on the policy here that year 1, you've got 90% liquidity of the policy. So that false. I get it that Dave Ramsey doesn't like them because most agents don't know what they're doing. But at the end of the day, that's just wrong. Number 2, the cash value grows at a 1 to 4%, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be 4.5 to 5% from a long-term perspective, which still, when compared to an investment, is not super sexy. But then when you look at the tax benefits and the fact that it can grow 4.5 to 5% tax-free, and the tax equivalent of investment would have to be about 7%. Well, now it looks a little better. But regardless, I'm not even going to go there. I'm just going to say 5% into a savings account from a long-term perspective is pretty damn good. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And yes, I know people are going to push back right now and be like, oh, Chris, I can get 4.5 or 5% in my high-yield savings account right now. That's right now. Talk to me in 2 years when rates go back down. Talk to me 3 years ago when you were earning 20 basis points on that same account, right? We have to be thinking long-term, right? All these people that like to argue the long-term the argument of buy term and invest the difference, but then they just focus on this one little myopic piece of time, which is right now, and not the economy, what it's been over the past 15 years and what it will probably be like moving forward. when you compare whole life policy actual returns to savings accounts, which is your emergency fund and your opportunity fund that we talk about and that you absolutely need, whole life insurance is going to beat your savings account and get you other benefits like the living benefits, like I talked about for your medical directive, the volatility buffer in retirement, and it's going to get you permanent insurance and help you make your insurance dollars more efficient along the way. And then so you got to loan the money and pay it back, usually around 6 to 8% interest. That's not factual. I mean, over the recent years, the interest on loans, it fluctuates with the market, follows typically the Moody's bond index, but there are companies anywhere between 4.5% right now and 5.75% is what I've seen. And so, that's still right now cheaper than most mortgage rates, right? So when you think about that, you're borrowing at let's say 5.75%, let's say worst case scenario, and you're earning maybe 5.2% dividends on that. So yeah, you're gonna pay a little, like 0.55, 55 basis points, if you do that, and whatever. But at the end of the day, I could show you how if I have money compounding at 5.2 and I'm paying 5.75, eventually I'm still gonna make up for it, because paying down amortized mortgage versus compounding at a higher rate, you're going to end up, compounding even at a lower rate, the lower rate wins as far as the growth compared to the interest expense. And that's just math. But the thing is, it's complicated and it's, not that simple. Now, this is the big argument that I hear a lot. People say that the insurance company keeps the money when you die. And so here's the deal with this. This is something that I think is really important to understand. They keep it. And if you don't design it right, then yeah, they're right. But once again, he says we didn't have liquidity. We had liquidity. He says they keep the cash value. Well, what is the difference here? 171 minus 9K equals 162K. So we got 162K of death benefit if they keep the cash value and only pay the death benefit there. That means really you're only getting 162K out of the gate, right? And so what happens is, as you get older here, as we go through here, and as the cash value grows, you'll notice the death benefit is growing as well. And because I could save this in a savings account, and when that passes, it's going to be taxable, or I could save it here and the life insurance will keep the 51K, but they're going to pay a 259K death benefit, right? So 259 minus 51 equals 208. So you'll see that the death benefit actually got bigger on a permanent basis in that situation. And to me, that's what this is all about, is really understanding the movement of money, how these different things work. Yes, like at the end of the day, you should never look at life insurance as an investment, but it is always an amazing savings vehicle, something that everybody should take into consideration. My biggest problem with buy term and invest the difference is most people that believe in that philosophy don't truly understand whole life insurance. They give me these kind of whack arguments about the 4 points that this guy just made in the comments that are actually just not true at all, but it's mind-numbing to me how many people believe them. But then on top of that, you should never look at whole life insurance as an investment. Whole life insurance is a savings alternative, and if you believe that you need to have an emergency fund, I will make a really, really strong argument to you, mathematically and factually speaking, for yourself and for the betterment of your family, the best place to keep your emergency fund is inside of a whole life insurance contract. So if you found value in this, please like it, share it, get it out there to people, subscribe and hit the bell that way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Hopefully you found value in this. Have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.